So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the Lugano Convention. So it's something where people have tried to explain it to me quite a lot, and something that I don't 100% understand. Not going to lie, not the smartest guy out there. Never claimed to be, but it just kind of allows courts within the convention to hear cases regardless of where the dispute is. So, say if there's a dispute in Belgium, the court case can be heard in a British court depending on the circumstances of it, and that court judgment made in Britain will be respected, or was respected, by the claimants and the sort of the prosecution and the defence, regardless of whichever country the case was taken in. And this generates a lot of money for the British government, the British Exchequer, because you have lawyers that are typically hired within the UK who would be paid out from this. That's why the City of London did really well, because you've got the top lawyers, accountants, and other people, other groups that can be used in court cases, be it financial or for family law or whatever. That's one of the reasons why the City of London did so well. So Boris Johnson has spent decades agitating against... Oh, sorry, I was meant to say this is a really good piece by CNN, who I wish they did better reporting within America. But anyways, Boris Johnson has spent decades agitating against the European Union and the last 5 years battling to free the United Kingdom from the shackles of regulations from Brussels. Now he's in the awkward position of finding himself at the mercy of EU leaders for permission to join an international treaty or risk devastating Britain's multi-billion dollar legal service industry, because if there are disputes between within the Lugano Convention, sorry, not within the Lugano Convention, but members of the Lugano Convention say there's an issue, a dispute, say, between a Norwegian company and a British company, that case could be heard in a British court, which would save the British company a lot of money. That dispute could be heard in a British court. Or if you had a dispute between, say, a Belgian company and a German company, that could also be heard in a British court, depending on the circumstances and of the case. But the Lugano Convention kind of allowed that. The agreement in question is called the Lugano Convention, and essentially it establishes the jurisdiction of national courts, guaranteeing the legal recognition and enforcement of a wide range of civil and commercial judgments in cross-border disputes. London is widely regarded as the global capital for international resolution thanks to England's world-class legal system and courts. It's very respected. And we've seen, the judiciary kind of hit back against the government as well on occasion. These are, really well-respected judges who aren't as open to corruption as other judiciaries are. It is a broad and highly lucrative industry, dealing with everything from family disputes to international business operations. I remember there was one story where I couldn't find it. It was a dispute between, I think it was the owner of Bournemouth and Roman Abramovich. And so the owner, he might have been a former owner of Bournemouth or a co-owner, whatever, I couldn't find it specifically. He wanted the case to be heard in a British court because he respected the British judiciary. He could have had this court case held in, Germany or whatever other country that is a member of the Lugano Convention, but he specifically wanted the British judiciary to deal with it. Now, ultimately, he lost, but it does tell you that it is widely respected. So yeah, that story with Abramovich, the person who respected the British law did not get the outcome they wanted, but it does show you they respected the British judiciary over other European judiciaries, if that makes sense. So the UK dropped out of the treaty as a consequence of Brexit. I wonder if the UK could have fought more strongly to stay in, but I think it's just there for EU and EEA members. Oh, and Switzerland as well, by the looks of things. Yeah, while non-EU signatory states, Iceland, Norway, Switzerland, agreed to its readmission, the UK's. The date the European Commission has recommended that the EU deny this request and said the bloc was not in a position to give assent to UK accession. Now, this could be the EU kind of hitting back over the UK's kind of aggression over the Northern Ireland Protocol, or it could be the case that, they really do see the UK as a really separate third country, not like Switzerland, but more like a Japan or a Canada, or maybe even less than that, maybe an Australia. So who knows? This is tricky for the Prime Minister because politically and economically, according to the Law Society, legal services added nearly $60 billion to the UK economy in 2018, while in 2017 exports of legal services hit $5 billion. So you can see that, when they talk about the UK exporting more to the EU in terms of services, the Brexit deal didn't cover services, and that's a major problem for the British government. Also, the fact that £60 billion was added by the legal service industry, that's going to go down dramatically as companies aren't going to go to British courts to get their resolutions done because it's not going to be respected. If you're, like we mentioned earlier, say a Belgian company that has a dispute with a German one, you're not going to a British court anymore because it's not respected by the Lugano Convention. So that's a huge problem. Scott Devine from the UK, from the City UK, a body representing UK-based financial and professional services, says the legal sector employs over 350,000 people, who two-thirds of those are from outside of London. And the reason why they're saying that is because they want people to understand that it doesn't just affect London, it affects most of the UK, depending on where these law firms are based, which will be major cities. And that's why this person here, Scott Devine, has made this point. Those positions are not in all major commercial law firms, the sector Devine says, is anything from a big multinational law firm working on international contracts and mergers to the high street solicitor, sole operator dealing with family issues. So this is not just going to impact, major law firms, it's going to affect smaller ones as well who might deal with family issues, which is a key thing mentioned here. In this kind of article, the reputation of English law has, Devine says, made it the preferred law of businesses and international contracts. According to Devine, in 2019, 77% of claims issued in the commercial court had one party from outside England and Wales, while 43% were entirely externally based. So you can see that 43% number, almost half were based externally, which tells you that a lot of foreign companies really respected the British judiciary, which won't happen now because there's no point going to a British court because it's not going to be respected by the other company. Say if you're a Belgian company again, you take a German company to court in a British court, well, the German company will say, well, the UK is not part of the Lugano Convention, so who cares about the outcome? Like, you have to go somewhere else. That's the point. Some of Brexit's most ardent critics are concerned that the failure to join Lugano and the poor relationship between the UK and European countries following Brexit could diminish the standing of this important sector. And the thing is, right, we've already started disrespecting the financial service sector. I would argue we're far too reliant on the financial services in the UK for, tax revenue. But this is another casualty of Brexit, the financial service sector, and now the kind of the legal system, the whatever you'd call it, not the judiciary, but the law sector, we'll call it, I guess. Dominic Grieve, the former AG for England and Wales, says he's concerned. His concern is for the long-term viability of London as a centre for dispute resolution. We've already seen it's been taken over in terms of financial services. Now it will no longer be the capital for dispute resolutions, which again is going to cost the UK a lot of money. He continued that the longer this goes on, the more potentially damaging it may become, because there's no doubt that the UK, when it was in the EU, was seen as the place for dispute resolution of choice for EU litigation of every conceivable kind. And the further issue is that I don't know what the rules are about kicking someone out of the Lugano Convention, but even if the UK is let back in, we are seen as unstable. And what that means is companies are less likely to do dispute resolution within the UK, are less likely to, carry out business within the UK because we're volatile, and companies don't like that. One problem London now faces is that outside of the convention and no clear sign of a decision anytime soon, EU nations can directly compete with the UK capital for business. And we've already seen that with financial services. Now we're going to see that with judicial services, with courts, with kind of law services. The alternatives are slowly becoming clear for international companies that want to operate in the EU and don't want any blockages, says Josep Galvez, a former Spanish judge admitted to the English bar at Del Canto Chambers in London and Galvez Pascual in Spain. This Lugano limbo the UK finds itself in is the worst situation possible, as lawyers on both sides have no clarity on what will happen in the long term. I think the EU wants to make the UK suffer and give EU jurisdictions the opportunity to take business from England. And this is another case where the EU can do that without really trying, because all they have to do is stop the UK joining the Lugano Convention, and after that the pieces will fall where they may. Law firms might start leaving, you might see solicitors being cut because they're no longer needed because the firms aren't getting the cases like they used to. Some lawyers, some barristers might try moving to the EU and doing the bar in whichever, the equivalent of the bar in whichever country. Ireland might become the new head for this stuff, depending on how strong the judiciary is over there. Because I think the tests are way easier for English lawyers and barristers to go over there to, work, essentially. Galvez believes over time more difficulties will arise which will undermine the confidence in English courts. He pointed to a recent decision in a Swiss court where an English ruling was not upheld, which he believes shows the rough ride ahead for UK judgments. And this is the thing I'm mentioning, and this is an example he's actually given, which is great, which is that the Swiss court did not uphold the decision of the British court, which shows you that right now other courts are not respecting decisions made by British courts, which means that companies won't go to UK courts anymore over international disputes. Others are more optimistic, Devine says. The confidence in our judiciary, which is seen as incorruptible, and experts in the commercial field should mean the UK returns its appeal. But the thing is, that doesn't make sense, because if there's a dispute between two companies that exist within different countries, even if they go to the UK court, the loser of that decision will say, well, the UK courts have no jurisdiction here, so, it doesn't count, essentially, and it will go to another court where that decision the British court made might get overturned. So this point, whoever's making this point, I don't think is very bright. Catherine McGuinness, policy chair at the London Corporation, thinks that the biggest losers will be individuals seeking justice as consumers or in their personal lives. I'd be more concerned about implications for ordinary people and smaller businesses operating cross-border, she says. Because, if you have a dispute, if you're in the UK and you have a dispute with a Belgian company, in order to get that dispute resolved, you're going to have to go to Belgium or another Lugano Convention member to get it resolved, which is going to cost you a lot of money. You're going to have to find a law firm within another country. That might be quite difficult. So you can see why it would impact, families and small businesses a lot more than bigger ones. It says that is the person trying to buy something across borders or considering how to divorce their partner across borders who's going to find that they don't have access to this really pragmatic route to clarify their legal situation. And also, what happens when EU courts aren't respected within the UK? What happens when, say a Swiss court makes a decision and the UK court is like, no, we don't respect that. The divorce has been overturned or whatever. What happens in that situation? Sarah Garvey, chair of the Law Society's Private International Law Committee, agrees that the strained political relationship between the UK and the EU won't have as negative an impact on big commercial contracts, but could severely harm those seeking legal recourse as consumers or in family disputes. There was initial concern amongst commercial parties that English judgments would be more difficult to enforce in the EU because if you're the loser, this gives you an easy out. But they have been reassured by the UK rejoining the Hague Convention and have been adapting their contracts. So that's something bigger companies will find much easier to do, especially since they are aware of the problem. Smaller companies may not be as aware. Alongside the high business, reputational and individual costs for Johnson himself, there is also strong potential for personal embarrassment. It would be a political nightmare for the UK's Prime Minister, an architect of Brexit, to be seen at the mercy of the very Eurocrats he claims to have saved Brits from in 2016. If he has to ask for permission to join Lugano, which he most likely will not do, it will be quite embarrassing when the UK has to reject him in that situation. The EU has to reject him, in that situation. It's politically uncomfortable for Johnson that the EU is starting to react to what it sees as our bad behaviour, says Anand Menon, Professor of International Politics at the King's College London. But the thing is, if we're rejected from Lugano, I can see Boris Johnson not really caring, even if, tax receipts start falling. We've already seen financial services leave the UK. So I don't think he's going to see it as a major loss, even though it really is for the country. Lots of Brexiteers said from the start of the Brexit process that London taking a hardline stance wouldn't result in retaliation from Brussels. And the thing is, this might not be retaliation from Brussels. It might be just saying that, look, we just don't want you to be a member of this, of this convention. This is one of the first examples where we are being damaged internationally and the EU holds the keys, and it gives us an idea of how much they are willing to think, how much they think our reputation has changed, he adds. It's in the EU's interest to take as much business as they can from the UK because we are not a member of the EU anymore. We're a competitor now, and the EU does not want to compete with us. They want to take as much as they can away from us, which they have the absolute right to do that. There's no issue with that at all. The standoff does appear to be driven by political disputes between the UK and the EU, and critics of both sides are quick to point out that the people this affects most, this affects our British and European citizens. The thing is, that's true, but that isn't that isn't necessarily the fault of the EU by rejecting us from the Lugano Convention. That's the impact of Brexit itself. And it's important to remember that the Northern Ireland Protocol is a part of Brexit. This Lugano Convention, the UK leaving it, is a part of Brexit. And if the UK wanted to stay a member of the Lugano Convention, that's something we could have resolved during negotiations in 2019, but we didn't, did we? In cases that involve victims of corporate human rights abuses, business versus consumer cases, and family law in those cases, the party has more financial resources, may try to introduce arguments about which country should be hearing the case and whether a UK court judgment can be enforced, says Zach Myers, a research fellow at the European Centre. At the Centre of European Reform, which is true that if you're the partner or the company with more money, you could say, look, we're not going to have the court case in the UK because it can't be enforced in other countries, so we're going to go to, say, a country that's further away, that's going to cost a lot more money to deal with in, say, I don't know, Switzerland, for example. You're going to have to pay for flights, you're going to have to pay for legal representation over there, which will cost you money. That's a very strong possibility that could happen. It might go to a further, a country that's further away, maybe a country that has a judiciary that which can be corrupted. Unfortunately, relationships between Brussels and London are dire. The UK is currently trying to renegotiate a key part of the Brexit deal that Johnson himself signed in 2019, which is untying EU member states against the UK once more. So this could be seen as retaliation from the EU. I think that's how a lot of people are seeing it. I'm seeing it as, you're not a member, what? Get out. The UK government's official position remains it wants to rejoin Lugano. Downing Street says convention is not something that should be policed by the EU and the UK should be admitted as soon as possible. The thing is, right, that this is mainly for EU and EEA members. I think Switzerland's allowed despite not being an EEA member. We're not part of the club anymore. Like, stop trying to play hardball when you can't. This is for EU member states and EEA members, like I mentioned. Like, you cannot play hardball in this situation. You cannot demand access to the Lugano Convention. We chose to leave. Brexit means Brexit. Less humble. This is a less humble request to join. More anger from Brussels trying to punish it for Brexit, which the EU aren't really doing that, are they? We decided to leave. Like, you can't leave an agreement and then be mad that you don't have access to whatever, you can't leave your gym membership and be mad you can't access the swimming pool or the spa. Like, you've left, bro, like, get over it. A Downing Street spokesperson told CNN, "We maintain that we meet the criteria for ascension, both because it is open to countries outside the EU and all non-EU members already supported the UK's membership." But the thing is, this is a political decision now. This is a political decision and the EU have decided not to let us join. You can't get mad over that. Supporting UK ascension is sensible and pragmatic solution for all citizens. Well, a sensible and pragmatic solution would be for us to get an SPS agreement with the EU, a Swiss-style agreement. We haven't done that. There are other sensible and pragmatic solutions for the UK when it comes to resolving some of the issues around Brexit. We haven't done that. So to make this argument here makes you look very stupid once again. The incredibly important issue is likely to rumble on for some time. It might not be as exciting as the sausage wars or fishermen ramming each other's boats, but over time the consequences of a poor relationship between London and Brussels will become more obvious to citizens on both sides, especially businesses, small ones. The question for both parties now is how long can you maintain political stances that ultimately harm your own citizens for the sole purpose of saving face and making a point? Well, that should be more aimed at the UK, really, considering that the EU won't be as impacted by this. So, once again, this is going to cost the UK potentially billions of pounds a year as external companies and people won't use the UK courts anymore because they can't be enforced within Europe. Essentially, the court rulings can't be enforced. They might be overturned by other courts who may read the law differently. It might be to the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law, or vice versa, or whatever other reason. They might not see it the same way British courts do, and those decisions that British courts make will not be respected anymore within EU courts, or courts within EU member states, should I say. So a big loss. Brexiteers can get mad, but they can have a seat because you wanted Brexit. You said Brexit means Brexit. You want to leave the EU, and now you got a taste of what the reality is for that. So have fun, guys. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. I know this was more reading than analysis, but the analysis here within the CNN article was pretty good as is. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.